Sky Sports had the bottom 6 who's getting relegated chart up on after the game, and we went on it. Like, how good's that? But I was wondering, Craig, like what's the kind of noise coming out of the club now? Do they think, I mean, obviously the job's not done, but are they now looking at it thinking, you know what, we're pretty much safe here. We need to start preparing for the summer. We're going to be a Premier League club. Let's start getting deals in place. Are they thinking like that? Or are they still kind of very much feet on the ground? Lots of work to be done. Relegation is still a possibility, so we have to plan for that. What's the kind of noise you're getting on that?
Yeah, I don't think they've ever been really planning for relegation. I think there's always been a confidence and a hope that they would survive. But certainly, I've had no conversations with anyone who was declaring Newcastle to be safe, and I think that's rightly so. Really, you mentioned that Sky Sports graphic. I mean, the irony in a way of Newcastle being on this tremendous run and having moved to a position in 14th is that they're still closer to the bottom 3 than they are 13th.
Oh yeah,
it is incredibly tight down there. And Newcastle have had to go on a manager of the month winning run to pull only 4 points clear of safety. Now that's quite scary in a way. If you think if they hadn't have accumulated the points they have, and if Newcastle weren't at the very top of the Premier League form table, they'd probably still be in the bottom 3. Now that just shows that the effect Newcastle's run has had hasn't been to put distance between them and the bottom 3. If results had gone another way, Newcastle could have been 7-8 points clear now, and I think the tone of this conversation would be different. What Newcastle's run has done, and what Burnley's run to an extent has done, and Norwich and Watford have also picked up points we perhaps wouldn't have expected in the last 5 or 6 games. It's brought other teams into it. So you've now got a 6-7 melting pot down there, where I would honestly say there's perhaps, you were looking at it 5 or 6 weeks ago. There's more chance now of Leeds going down than there is either Newcastle or Burnley. Everyone a month ago everyone was talking about 3 from 4. I no longer think that's the case. I was at Leeds on Saturday against Spurs, and that, wow, I mean, I've got a lot of respect for what Marcelo Bielsa did there, and I've certainly enjoyed the ride. And you've seen by the subsequent reaction of players and supporters that there was no anger there. It wasn't Newcastle and Steve Bruce. There was no viciousness. It hadn't turned toxic, but there was just a real sad acceptance of how bad it had gone. And when it stops working under Marcelo Bielsa, it really does stop working. And it was broken there on Saturday. And I saw a team who I thought, goodness, there was not a chance. When you compare what I'm watching with Newcastle week in, week out, and I do the odd Leeds game as well, when I compare what I'm seeing between the two teams, there's only, there is not a hope in hell of Leeds finishing above Newcastle based on what I've seen in the last 2 or 3 weeks, pretty much from the game down in Ellen Road between the two clubs. So I don't think Newcastle are safe just yet. Listen, I think they will stay up, and I've always said that. I have always maintained that. And I think the reason I do say that is because the run of fixtures, and I think with the Palace game going now, is it right? They've now got 4 away games on the spin. Is it perhaps the next 4 or 4 of the next 5 are going to be away from home with the Palace game being postponed? So,
so Everton and Southampton have both been put in the midweek. So yeah, it's
so I think after Brighton on Saturday, I think there's could even be 4 away games on the spin now. Listen, Newcastle are looking entirely capable away from home, but this is the Premier League, and going away from home isn't easy. And I do think you've just got that little run of games towards the end of the season whereby if you haven't got sufficient daylight, you don't want to be going into Man City, Liverpool and Arsenal needing good results from those games. Listen, I think Newcastle are capable under Eddie Howe of taking points from anyone, but I do think it's important that they've got the work done what they have done now in terms of the points on the board. I think they will stay up. But the message, to go back to your question, sorry, Si, we went off on a Leeds tangent there to a degree. Go back to your question. I've had no conversations with anyone within the club whereby they're declaring Newcastle safe. I do think in terms of a planning perspective, I think it's always been the case that planning has been geared towards a Sven Botman as opposed to a Grant Hanley. That has always been the aim. That is the recruitment drive at the moment. I know that Newcastle sent a scout down to Stamford Bridge last week, for example, to watch Sven Botman play for Lille against Chelsea. So that is the ambition. That is absolutely the intent. And I think it will be something which comes to fruition in terms of Newcastle being a Premier League team next season. But I'll sound like Eddie Howe here. There still is a hell of a lot of work to be done. And that is the message he wants to pass down to the players, pass down to the press, and also pass upstairs to the owners as well.
Yeah. And you've absolutely correctly reminded us of, in spite of the run we've just been on, we have got a tough run in, as well as, like you say, the 4 away games coming up after Brighton. Brighton's another massive game. It's another huge 3 points that could really, because we've got to strike while the iron's hot. We've got to get more and more points on the board to really give us that cushion in case we do there will be a dip in form. These lads are playing out their skin every week. That's not really sustainable, is it? I mean, it probably is with Eddie Howe. It's starting to feel like it is. And seeing as you've mentioned him, that's the next thing we'll talk about. Eddie Howe. I was kind of just reflecting on the managerial hunt that went a bit awry, didn't it? Back in November, when it just seemed to bumble on and on. Oh, we're getting Emery. Oh, we're getting Fonseca. There was loads of big names from European clubs, which was nice to have them linked with Newcastle. And it kind of set our expectations really high that, right, they mean business. They're going to get a big name here. And then we landed on Eddie Howe. And I'm not saying that myself or anyone else was disappointed with that, but I think we were a little bit, all right, so we've ended up with Eddie Howe after all the talk of these kind of Champions League winning managers. And even Emery would have been a huge, huge coup because he's literally in the Champions League with Benfica at the time, and yet here we are, and none of us would say anyone else could have done a better job up to this point where we are now. So, Mickey, I just wanted to get your thoughts on that first. Like, what was your feeling at the time compared to what is it now? Has he exceeded expectations? Did you know this, what we're getting from Eddie Howe? What are you thinking?
It's a miracle run, isn't it? The run of form he's put together recently it's a miracle run, and it's taken that to get us to the position we are now, because of how terrible everything was previously. But he's clearly exceeded expectations. Nobody thought we could go on the run that we have. Nobody thought we could go to West Ham and be the better side and be disappointed with a draw against the form team of the season. It's absolutely sensational, but it's interesting to think about it in the context, isn't it? Because you flash back to the time when we were looking for the manager, and it was a little bit like, what's going on here with the ownership? Why has all this been played out in the press? Why have we said we want Emery before we know he's going to come, and then he turns the club down, and we'll have to look publicly for what ultimately was the second choice? I know they're saying different now, but it couldn't have worked out any better, could it? I looking at what we've got now, I wouldn't want Unai Emery as the manager of this club. I want Eddie Howe. He's done a brilliant job, and it's such a massive positive that it's gone so well so quickly, because it's just quashed those little threads of doubt that we're spreading a little bit around social media and a little bit around the fan base of maybe these guys don't know what they're doing when they've come in and bought the club. They're possibly getting this big decision wrong on the manager. Why is it taking so long? Why have they done it all in public? Why have we ended up with Eddie Howe? And then, as it turns out, Eddie Howe's a genius, and everything he's done since has been absolutely spot on. So it's just sensational. I just love him already. Love him.